coming on and doing this interview for us.
I am so happy to be here.
So can you first start off telling us a little about yourself and what you do?
Well, my name is Ellen Mizener, and I am a scenic designer for live theater, and I also do costumes. I had done costumes earlier in my career, but stopped, and then when I went to graduate school, I started doing costumes again. Yeah, that's who I am. I mean,
Okay. How did you, what drew you to doing set design? What made you interested in that?
well, I participated in theater when I was in high school and for the first couple of years of university, but I didn't study theater. That wasn't my major at university or anything like that. I was a teacher for about 25 years before I moved to Texas, and I taught everything from pre-K to postgraduates and in industry as well. But when we moved to Texas, there were no teaching positions available in my areas of expertise, so I had to find something else to do. And purely by chance, we got tickets to see a play at a small theater near my house, and they were asking for volunteers to help with their next show. So we went along. And one of the other people helping on that day was the director for a different show. And she was talking to my husband and making a very much longer story very short. My husband told her that if she needed this specific place and time that she really wanted for her show, that she should ask me to design. And she did. And I did. And I've been doing it ever since.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
I didn't really study scenic design. I didn't train to be a designer, I guess, to answer the specific question. But I did go back to school and complete an MFA in scenic and costume design just recently. I sort of found out by doing it that I was pretty good at it. And I've been told I have good instincts.
okay, what are some things, since you kind of taught yourself, what are some things that are either skills that you didn't know that you were going to need, or was there anything that you were like, gosh, I wish I would have paid attention to that in school, or anything like that?
Yeah, okay, so it's hard for me to say I wish I would have paid attention to that in school because this was not something this as a field wasn't something that I studied. My degree is in philosophy and in political science. I have a double minor too, but we don't need that. But what I learned in school, there were a lot of things I learned when I was in school in those areas that helped me. And I think one of the most important things was how to analyze, how to synthesize, how to think, and how to think creatively. And those are probably way more critical skills for good design work than people realize. I learned most of what I learned about theater from doing it. I had a fundamental understanding of how to make a ground plan, for example, from an art class I took in high school. And I was always drawing plans to rearrange my bedroom and stuff like that. I learned to design spaces by doing it, and I broke all of the rules. When I was first designing, I didn't know there were rules or how-tos. Interestingly enough, I think that actually makes me a better designer. So I was kind of unconstrained by the things that they tell you that put you in that kind of designer box. I'm also a very good observer, and learning to see the things around you, whether they're grand or mundane, is one of the critical skills that one needs to be a good designer. It also helps a lot if you have a background in art. Knowing how to draw accurately helps. It's not required, not by a long shot. There are an awful lot of designers who cannot draw an apple or a box, but it does help if you can. So studying art doesn't hurt at all.
Okay. That's interesting that you said about having broken all of the rules at some point in your process, because
Yeah.
something that we talk about in theater and in our school is that it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to mess up, because that's how you learn, and that's how you say, well, that didn't work, so this time I'll try it this way.
And that's absolutely true. I couldn't agree with that more. As an educator, I believe that the most important tool, teaching tool I have in my kit, in my toolbox, is failure. Letting students fail so that they can learn how to do it correctly. By trying something, it's kind of like the scientific method. Scientists don't know when they're doing an experiment, or engineers don't know when they're doing an experiment how things are come out. They have a theory about how something's going to turn out, and then they record meticulously all the steps they took, and then they record the outcome. And was the outcome what they expected, or was it not what they expected? And they actually learn more if it's not what they expected. And I had the same thing happen for me. I learned more about how to do theater by all of the things I did wrong in the process. And again, I think that makes me a much stronger designer.
Well, that's really good to know, because I know when I was in school, and I think for a lot of people, failure is something that we naturally are kind of afraid of. So if we can learn to see it in a healthier way, and see it in a way that it's just another way of learning something, as opposed to I'm automatically bad at this and I should give it up
No,
and try something else,
no. In fact, when I was teaching art, that's one of the things I used to teach. My students would come to me and say, I made a mistake. I said, you didn't make a mistake. You just have a different path in your painting or in your drawing or whatever. Use it, make it change it, go with what happened. I mean, if it's really, really, really bad and they feel horrible, and yeah, okay, clean it out. But I was very encouraging of using those as opportunities rather than seeing them as failures.
Awesome. Well, with all of that said, would you be so kind as to kind of walk us through a little bit of your process, as far as how you do what you do? I mean, obviously you don't just run up onto the stage with some 2x4s and a drill.
No.
What do you do? What do you do first? What are kind of the first steps in your process here?
Okay, well, the first thing, of course, is to get a hold of the script.
Mm-hmm.
But once I have a script, I think about, where are we and when are we? Where does the play take place, and when does the play take place? And those can actually be very tricky questions. It may not necessarily be what you think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of one particular play where you don't actually find out where it takes place literally until the last line of dialogue in the play. You can read the whole thing and you know exactly where it is, and you get to the last line and you go, oh my goodness. And it's not where you thought it was. So the best place to find those things is in the script. What do the characters tell me when they talk? What do they tell me about where they are, and when they are? I spend a lot of time reading the script, taking notes about all kinds of things. Anything that will tell me about the world that the characters inhabit. I don't start to draw anything until I have a really good understanding of those things. And then I talk to the director. I think about what the director tells me about what his or her idea is about the play. I think about what I have learned through reading the script, and then I try to put those things together to make a good design. And I don't actually start to pick up anything besides a piece of pen and a paper, or maybe some highlighters to mark up the script, for a very long time. Most of my background work is done, with books, doing research, with paper and pencil, taking notes. I will occasionally make a small sketch if there's something in particular that I want to remember, that I want to include this, and here's an idea I have in my mind for how that might work. I will do a small sketch in a sketch pad. But other than that, I don't go anywhere near starting to draft until all of that is taken care of. And then when I do start to draft, I use a couple of different computer programs. I will usually sketch my initial ideas out with paper and a pencil and a sketch pad, sorry. But when I draft, I use a couple of different computer programs. I use something called SketchUp, and I use something called Vectorworks, and I work on a Mac computer. And so then I will drop my ideas, and they will go through many different iterations. You know, showing them to the director, getting feedback, you know, is this going to work? How's that working? You know, will this work for your blocking? All these kinds of things. And there have been times where I had final drafts of my designs due on a Monday. And that meant all of my drawings had to go to the shop, to the technical director and master carpenter, so they could start reviewing them and making the drawings that then the shop would use to build my set. On Friday afternoon, before that Monday, I got a phone call from the director. He said, "Do you have time to talk tomorrow?" And I said, "Yeah, I got time to talk now." He said, "No, we'll talk tomorrow." So Saturday morning, about 11 o'clock, he called me. And basically between the end of that phone call, which was about 30 minutes long, so between 11:30 on Saturday and Monday morning, I completely redrafted the show completely.
Oh. So I imagine that was very frustrating, but in a regular process, going through and making changes, is that
It's not like that, no.
okay?
Extreme
So,
example. But that is one way that the director's input, you know, is you always have to listen to the director. You know, you have to give the director what he or she wants. You know, I mean, I will have a discussion with the director about, well, you know, I know you said you want this, but what about this instead? You know, what have you thought about this twist on this idea? You know, and sometimes they listen and sometimes they don't listen. But, you know, sometimes they're more open to the ideas. But it's a collaboration. You are always working extremely closely with the director. In fact, it's the scenic designer from the beginning that has the strongest influence on the way the play works visually. Costume designer would be the next person. Lighting designer works closely with the scenic designer as well. But the scenic designer is a person who's literally in charge of the look and feel of the play. So all of the props, all of the furniture, everything that you see except for the costumes and the actors is a choice by a scenic designer.
right. So if a student wanted to start getting into scenic design and that was something that they thought they might be interested in, what advice would you have for them, or what tools would you tell them to start playing with, or what are there any things that you would say, okay, start here?
Yeah, be curious. Number one, be curious about everything. Pay attention to details. Read, study, listen. Learning to listen, to honestly listen without thinking about what you're going to say next, is really important, because then you will really hear what the person you're talking to is saying. And that's really, really important in a collaborative relationship. Try new things, you know, try new food, or try new things you've never done before, experiences, travel, learn a different language. Be open to new ideas, to new ways of looking at things, to new ways of thinking about things. Listen to people you don't agree with. Imagine what it would be like to live someplace else, or live in a different time, or to be somebody else. Try and put yourself in another person's person. Imagine what it would be like to live their life. Look through their eyes. Those kinds of things actually teach you how to think. And they can help you think creatively, or outside of the box, as people like to say. And those are the critical skills that it takes to be a good designer. Those are the things that really are really, really difficult to teach. All the other stuff, learning how to use a computer program, learning the principles of design and the elements of art, learning how to use the tools in the shop, those are all good things to know, but they are things that someone else can teach you or help you learn. The ability to think creatively, that comes from inside of you. And that comes from a mindset that is curious, that is interested, and that is willing to look at things differently and see another side.
I love that. And I think that's really good advice for our actors as well.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Anybody in a creative field, it doesn't really matter. You know,
mhm.
all of the tools, you know, the pencils and the pens and the, you know, the brushes and the whatever else, that's really, those are skills. You know,
Mhm.
those are things that you can, you know, it's like learning how to bake. I can teach you how to bake bread, no problem. You know, but understanding the bread baking process, understanding why flour and yeast and water and all those things combine to do what they do. There's a chemical reaction. You don't have to understand all of the chemistry, but it really helps if you understand how that all goes together. And learning to, with scenic design, you know, learning to look at something and see not only what it is, but actually almost what it isn't. You know, how does it fit in its, where did it come from? How does it fit in its time? You know, look at it at an antique ink bottle or a gargoyle, you know, or one of those things. Why did they do that? Let's find out. Being curious, going down the rabbit hole, trying to find the answer. That is, I think, the most critical thing that can make you a good designer of any kind.
Very good. Very good. Um, I love it because that's something that, you know, can translate into any area of theater that you want to go into, whether it's, you know, like we said, acting or set design or costumes or anything. Being curious and wondering
Yeah,
is a good start to it.
absolutely.
Well, since you are a pro at this, would you mind showing us uh, some of your, like,
Yes,
do you have any pictures from sets you've
yes,
designed or ground plans or?
I do. How can we do this? How can I share things with you? Do I share my screen? Is that how I do it?
I think so. That should record it. Yeah.
Okay, let me go ahead and open up my website because that's probably the fastest way to
Okay.
find things rather than having me go through pictures.
Okay.
Here we go. Okay, let's see. Let's go in through here. I think what I'd like to do, what I'll do is I'll start with some of the early things. Some of the, actually, I've got pictures of the very first show I ever did in this area. Thought I did. Where are they? I know I do because there it is. Okay. So this is the very first show I ever designed in this area. Share screen. Okay. So can you see that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
right. So this is the play, and then there were none, which is an Agatha Christie mystery.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of the interesting things about this is that all of this stuff that you see here on the walls, on the fireplace, this rug, this floor, all of this stone, that's all painted. That's not real stone. That's not real marble. That's not a real zebra skin. That's a zebra skin we painted. Um, the stone wall is painted. All of the stone is painted. And this mural back here that shows the English coastline is only 9 inches away from that stone wall back there, just enough room to put a bank of cyc lights.
Okay.
So some of the details here. So there's the fireplace.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see a little bit of the detail in the walls here. They're not just plain. This is supposed to look like leather, and this is supposed to
Oh.
look like raw silk.
Okay.
Back in those days, they used to actually put fabric on the walls as wallpaper. So these are some of the actors in the show. And you can see a lot of the set dressing. We got a lot of artifacts that looked like this person was extremely well traveled. So, you know, zebra skin, the giraffe carvings, these kinds of things, the tiger. And of course, we had these the little 10 little Indians that would disappear. There was a little trap door right here, and someone would reach through with a black glove and take one little Indian off of the fireplace whenever somebody was being killed.
Oh.
That's a piece of calligraphy that I did for it. That's the poem, the 10 Little Indians poem. It's another. That's just a. Oh yeah, this fireplace was really cool too. That's just some black velvet fabric and some red Christmas lights. So it makes it like it's growing. And so then here's.
That was something that we looked at when we talked about theater safety, was not using actual flames on stage.
Absolutely. So then here's just a picture of the mural under lights. Let's see, what else is there? Okay, let me go back. So that's one that was on a fairly small stage. So now I think I'll show you one that's on a bigger stage.
Okay.
This is a good one here. This was a play called Rough Crossing. I'm going to forget who the playwright is. It's a musical. It's, you know, it's nothing really earth-shaking. It's, you know, a love story kind of thing. But it's placed on a ship. So I had to create the deck of a ship. And so what we did was we put up this, you know, this wall here that's like, it's like you're sitting on a deck and you've got this overlook, and it's in the 20s, so it's about the time of the Titanic. So the ship had to look that kind of period. And if you notice back here, we'll see this in the detail in a minute, we have the rivets on the wall.
Oh, I can see that, yeah.
And we needed 2 stories, you know, for a plot thing. So, and we have, you know, lounging chairs, teak lounging chairs and things like that. We have a bar. All of these things were called for in the script. And so we just kept kind of make it work. And then we used the cyc back here to kind of, it only ever showed sky and things like that, because that's all you would see from the deck of the ship, unless you were looking over the edge. And so we left it like that. Here's looking over. We had dropped the pit, and we had a kiddie pool of water we shone light into, so that the light would reflect up onto the actor from the water.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah. And so looking at having to research what a life ring looked like back in the 20s, what did shuffleboard thing look like? I forget what that tool is called that they use.
Yeah.
Here you can see a little bit of the rivets on it. Now here you can see the rivets really prominently on here. This is all PVC pipe that we then covered with insulation foam.
Okay.
You put around your pipes in, you know, like if you need to keep a hot water line warm.
Right.
Yeah. So again, it's just a ship.
Well, I notice, you know, as you said, since it had 2 levels, there's railing and all of that stuff. You still have to make everything safe for the actors to be on when you're designing it, right?
Yes, you do. Absolutely. There are certain rules when you work in equity theaters. Which are when actors are paid. There are rules that you have to follow to keep those actors safe. It's written into the contract, and so I tend to follow those rules regardless. I take those as my starting point for all of my scenic design, that we're going to follow these rules so that everybody is safe regardless. So anything above, I think 6 feet has to have a railing, depending on, like if I'm working with a children's group, anything over 4 feet has a railing on it, period. I don't ever put anybody up on anything higher than 4 feet without a railing. So yeah, so there's that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Do you have a particular favorite design or something that you were especially proud of how it turned out, or?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. This one right here. This is Animal Farm the musical. Now, Animal Farm
Oh, wow.
have you guys, if they read Animal Farm, do they know Animal
I
Farm?
I don't think they have at
I
this point. I think that's more high school.
Yeah, okay. So there's a book called Animal Farm by George Orwell, and in it he describes, he's talking about the dangers of certain political choices. Really, that's what the story's about. But the way the story's told is animals who take over a farm and actually kind of start to function as humans because they can talk. It's one of those things that happens in literature.
Mm-hmm.
And for the play, it takes place in the barn in this farmyard. So this is a big theater. It's a proscenium theater. It has a 24-foot high proscenium and it is 38 feet wide. My barn, I built a full-size barn on this stage. So you can see this post right here
Mm-hmm.
goes up to the central beam along of the roof of the barn, and that is 25 feet in the air. It's higher than the actual proscenium, but because of the way the house is, you can actually see it. You look up at it. And then they've got, we'll look at a couple more things in. But what I really wanted was a barn that looked like it had been there for forever,
Mm-hmm.
and it had been well used, and people had been chucking things in the barn, because it was no longer useful. So up here in the hayloft, I think in one of these pictures, oh, I love this. So this is this couch. We built that couch. It's an actual couch underneath, a absolutely perfectly fine functional couch. And we didn't want to hurt the piece of furniture, so we made all of this. We took fabric and we took stuffing, we put fabric on it and cut it open and pulled it and put dirt. And so this is where the chickens nested. So that's why it's all torn apart, because, that's what chickens do.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's lots of, barn things. We've got sawhorses and crates and hay bales and barrels and stuff. So here are the animals, okay, in the barn.
Mm-hmm.
And they have learned to read and write and, all kinds of things that one doesn't normally have happen in a barn. And you can see here, there's gaps in the barn planking, and that was another way to show that that the barn was in disrepair.
Mm-hmm. So
And
it's not just about, okay, it has to be a barn, so we'll just throw any barn up there. You're also using it to help kind of set the mood and set the tone. This is not a happy, fresh, brand new, cheerful looking barn. This is a barn where maybe unhappy things might be happening.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yep. And back here on this wall, the animals make a list of rules for themselves, and so that gets posted in the barn. And but you see on all these different things, there's a bushel of apples, and we've got a big old tire. There was a lot of horse tack hanging along this wall.
Mm-hmm.
So this is all in Act 1. And up here in this, I wish I had a close-up picture of this, because up here in the hayloft, we had all kinds of things. You can see a door back here. There's a stuffed deer head. There's a toilet. There's a toilet seat. There's the door of a Volkswagen bus up there.
Okay.
All this stuff. And underneath this, okay, so it's a musical. Okay, mm-hmm. It didn't have an orchestra. Underneath this pile of rags is the piano.
Oh.
So, I see. I thought, okay, so then in the second act, when the lights come up in the second act, all of the stuff is gone. It has been completely cleared out. It's become a very sterile space. It's just the hay bales up here, just a couple of crates and barrels down here, and that's it. Everything's gone. And that's part of the storyline. Here is you get a really good idea of how open everything was on the top. That was also important for the lighting designer, because, having a full barn roof was going to make you couldn't have any light inside the barn.
Right.
Yeah.
So everything that you put on the stage is helping tell the story in some way or another.
Absolutely. Yep.
It's it's not just something up there because it's cute or cool looking.
No.
Everything up there helps.
Yeah, it helps take the story forward. Absolutely. I mean, a lot of things like the stuff that was in the hayloft in the other picture, a lot of that stuff was like, "Ooh, that'd be cool. That'd be cool." But it also made sense in a
Mm-hmm.
barn. I wouldn't have put, a fine art painting up there,
Right.
or,
A lava lamp.
a lava lamp. Yeah, exactly. Also, because it's not a time period thing, but everything has to make sense, and they are all conscious choices. There was a lot of things I said, no, I'm not putting that in there.
Mm-hmm.
But there was that was one where I could really have a lot of fun with, oh yeah, let's do that. But not every show gives you that. Not every show allows you that, ooh, that'd be fun. You're very much more restricted by the story itself. So then at the very end of the play, the animals they've been free, roaming around. And at the very end, they end up in these cages. These cages were actually part of that wall, and they pulled out from this side wall of the barn to make that transition into a different kind of space. And then at the very end, they have this big party. So this bar rolled on, and everybody showed up in there. All the humans came and had a party with the animals who were in control of the farm. So I think there's one. Is there one more? Yeah. So this was actually after the end of the play. This was taken in a dress rehearsal, but I liked how it showed the variation between the animals who are still here, the farm boy, and animals in their corrals, and then the barn and all of the fancy people. So there's a really interesting contrast going on there. So would you like to see more, or?
I think that's a great start for us. I am really thankful for you for walking us through all of this and kind of giving us a peek at what you do and how that all works. So thank you so much for showing us a little bit about what you do and sharing your time with us.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
So, all right. And have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you very much. You too. I'll talk
I'm going
to you
to
soon.
stop the recording here.